Once upon a time, I showed a couple of photographs to a friend of mine, and one of them was a portrait of a girl. And my friend pointed this portrait out and he said, "Sometimes I feel like this." And to me, that exclamation was very, shocking almost, because he was so sure. He was sure that he knew what she was feeling, and he was sure that he had gone through the same. And it set me thinking, can you actually know what someone is feeling? Can you actually see what someone is like just by looking at a portrait? And as a photographer myself, I'm very aware that whatever I do or say or the way I feel when I take a photograph influences the person that is on the other side of the camera very, very much. And of course I choose which moment I show. So it set me thinking about portraiture. And I was just curious to see how much people can also change from one photograph to the next, and what things influence them. So she might be cold or she might be sad, and you might have the same sort of feeling in both of these occasions. And I would like to introduce you to my first project that I'm going to show. It's called Dissimilitude, from dissimilarity and similarities. I photographed two girls, and I worked with all the nuances in their faces, the way that they look sad, the way that they look neutral, the way that all different emotions cross over their faces. And I combined these two persons together. And what I wanted to do is make you look very, very carefully at those two girls, and to see how they sometimes look very different from themselves, and how they sometimes look very similar to another. So you're invited to compare them and to see how they can be changing in very subtle ways. And sometimes it might feel like the same girl is a different age in another photograph, for example, if she's much younger or older, or if her mind is much darker or lighter. And that's what the project is about. And I presented it like this as a slideshow with old slide projectors, so with real actual slides. It's analog photography as well. And it was presented in a dark space, and the slides are 1 meter high, so you really have these big photographs coming. Sometimes 3 are shown, sometimes 1 or 2, and I very carefully combined those. And it has been presented in quite a few places since I graduated with this work, the most notable being the Nederlands Photo Museum in Amsterdam, which is a very beautiful venue. And you enter a separate dark space and sit in front of these faces. And it takes about 4 minutes, and there's a rhythm there, but it does speed up a little. And in the end, there's a lot of, there's more emotion and there's more faces at the same time and a bit more speed. So it can be a quite intense experience to really see these big, overwhelming expressions coming to you. And relating this first project to the theme of reality, I think what I captured is real people, real expressions, but I do challenge the fact whether we actually really see them, and whether what you see is more about them, or more about maybe yourself as a viewer, or maybe about the maker, because I selected these feelings, and maybe they tell us more about how I felt at the time than these persons actually do. So it also plays with who are we learning about really at this time. And I think what you could say about my work in general, that I like to work with invisible themes. So, for example, this is about what can you see and what can't you see in a photograph, and the assumptions that we have. And for me, something that a photograph is never really about what's actually on the photo. So I'm not telling a story about her. I'm telling a story about portrait photography and about emotion. and about facial expressions and a lot of things, but not about the person on the photograph. So that's the way that I like to work. I take a theme and then I research it a lot and try to translate it into something visual, but it's often an invisible thing that I start with. As you noticed, it's not very loud, but you hear the sound of the slide projectors going like every time there's a new photograph. And it was important for me because it also gives a sort of echo of a maker that's taking a photograph. It reminds you of a shutter speed and makes you very conscious of someone that actually made these photos and took them. I would like to go on to the next project called Wolf Hunt Hunted. It's quite different because it's centered on nature. And I was invited to do a residency, so a working period as an artist, in Romania, in a very remote area in Transylvania, with a lot of forests. And I stayed in a cabin there with a couple of artists. And, well, of course, I was invited there. I didn't specifically pick the place myself, but all of a sudden I had this opportunity to be there for a month. And I researched the area, and one of the things that I read very soon was there's a larger wolf population in this specific area than the rest of Europe put together. So in this one forest, you have a lot of wild animals, also bears and boars, but mainly wolves. The area is known for them. And I noticed that what you fear and what you long for is often pretty much the same thing. So I was there and I was really hoping to meet wolves, but also quite afraid because, of course, a wolf is an animal that has a quite dark reputation from fairy tales and myths. And I talked to locals about it, and one of the first things I heard was, if you don't see them, it doesn't mean they are not there, because the wolves will always sense you before you see them. They have very good sense of smell and eyes, and they will be able to notice that you're there from a distance, and they might just be lurking around the tree or around the bush watching you, and you won't know. And well, that idea it took root into my head, and what I did was look for it a lot. Look for the wolves, also with a tracker who could see by the tracks that the wolf had walked somewhere, maybe 2 days ago or very recently, and we sat in certain places for a long time, so maybe an hour hidden behind a tree and just looking to see if they might come. And when you do that, after a while, every passing shadow or every rustling leaf becomes the sign of the wolf coming any minute now. So it was very intense, and there was a very high concentration of waiting for this predator and this dangerous, mythical animal to come. And I made an installation with this video material in which these very little things happen. And I combined it into an installation where you are in between two screens. So if you look to the left, you see a projection, and if you look to the right, you see a projection, and you are not able to see them both at once. So you will have to keep turning your head and see if you might see something coming out of the trees, or if you might just miss it, or what will happen. And I collaborated with two composers to create a soundtrack to it, and they made a special software. So they made layers of sound, which you just heard, and also layers of silence, and they related to each other in a different way every time the video was shown. So there was never a certain sound at a certain moment that was attached to the video, so it was always different and unexpected. And to me that was also essential, because I wanted the unexpected, uncertain feeling to be in the installation. So it could happen at any moment, and even I didn't know when a sound would come, or when something might change. And this was presented at first in Upominki, a project space in Rotterdam, where I had a solo exhibition. And I think it's also at the same time a very real thing. I mean, the wolves are really there, but also very fictional because I play with all these assumptions in your head about the wolf and the idea of the wolf instead of the actual wolf being there. So this is me sitting, waiting in Transylvania. The photograph was taken by the tracker that learned me to walk very slowly through the forest. This is the first sketch of how I wanted the installation to be. The image is very close to you and you not being able to see them at the same time to create a sense of, did I miss something? And then, well, you just saw the end result. This is another shot of it, you sitting between the screens and waiting and hoping and fearing the wolf. And this project is from 2013, and then last year I continued working with the wolf because I kept reading things about the wolf coming to the Netherlands, and of course it couldn't be ignored for me because the wolf was already a big theme for me. And I read a newspaper article that the wolf was coming and that there was a foundation formed in order to prepare our country for the wolf. So the Netherlands, not a typical wolf territory, was going to have wolves without its choice. So they were just coming. They were walking over the border from Germany every once in a while, and they will continue to do so. And there was a foundation preparing our country, and one of the things they did was give lectures, and also they had some camera traps. You see some footage from the camera traps right now. So they were placed in the forest near the border with Germany, and the idea was that they would help us to see if the wolf entering. So they'd capture everything that moves, and they are searched every 2 weeks to see, for the specific purpose, to see if there is a wolf there. And of course you see a lot of other animals and sweeping branches or someone walking by every once in a while. And that footage to me is a very interesting pool also to see, is it there or is this foggy person, this eyes, is it a wolf or is it not? And the idea that it is searched all the time was very interesting to me. So I claimed the footage and used it. And I also photographed some forests again in a similar way, only these are photographs, as in the Romania wolf project, as a sort of stage where the wolf might enter any moment. So the stage is set, but the actor is missing, but he can come soon. And these are all Dutch forests, so I did make a sort of fairy tale dark forest out of it, but it is in this country, which is very different in terms of forest than Romania, for example. And another thing I did for this project is collect advices. If you do happen to come face to face with a wolf, what should you do? I ran into those advices in a lot of different places, also in newspapers, but also the foundation Stichting Wolf in Nederland also gave some advice. For example, this is one of theirs. Do not step on the traces. Do not offer food to the wolf. Throw things at the wolf. Welcome the wolf. So there are big contradictions there, and some really show that you want a wolf to be there, and some really show that you don't, and they're very defensive gestures. This is imitate a wolf howl, can also help. Turn your back to it. And I made an almost yoga style tutorial, very clean, where I just enacted all the poses. And I barely selected the advices. I took all the silly ones and the serious ones and put them together. And in order to actually give you the feeling that you have to choose what would you do, and the idea that you have to make a choice brings the possibility of meeting the wolf a bit closer. So even though they are quite funny, they also have a serious side, like what would you do? Because it is possible, it is a real thing that you could meet a wolf. I mean, when a wolf was in the Netherlands, there were quite some people that actually faced him in unexpected places like the Action store and the street, and which was ridiculous to me. I almost was insulted by that. So I started this project before the wolf was in the Netherlands, and then all of a sudden he came, which was a bit upsetting, but also very interesting. And it was presented in Vrij Nederland magazine, so as a publication, as a photo story. And also in another residency that I did in het Pomgemaal, which is in Den Helder. And they have a very, very beautiful space that lets a lot of forest in through big windows, which you will see soon. And so I combined these three things that I just showed you. So the camera trap footage, the photographs that I took of the forest, and the poses. So it's like three elements that make up one project about the wolf in the Netherlands. So here you can see some making of footage of me getting the exhibition ready. So yeah, this is the building with all the forest coming in. And of the camera traps I made a big installation. There are 600 photographs there, and they're chronological, and you see some pigs and a lot of different animals walking by and sweeping branches, and I would never tell anybody if there is a wolf there or not. People would ask me, but it's a secret. And some people were convinced, and they came up to me, "Oh, I saw it," and other people said, "He's not there." And well, to me, that's part of the deal, part of the project. So you're invited in most of my projects to actually finish it in your own mind and to make it your own. And it can be different from one person who goes home and says, "Oh, I saw a wolf today," and for another who says, "Oh, it was about fear and there was no wolf." So yeah, that's important to me, that people can actually deal with the project in their own way and include their own views. So the poses were presented like this on the floor, and there's also the text, the actual advices and the sources, so you can see where the advices actually came from. There were some children in the exhibition reenacting all the poses. Okay, another project is Recollection, and I think this might be a good moment to tell you something about the personal aspect of making work like this. I think for me it's a necessity when I struggle with something, when I am afraid in the forest or thinking about what assumptions people have about me and about others, then to me it helps a lot to actually make an artwork out of it and to give it a visual shape, to give it a form. And this is a project about remembering someone who is no longer there. And it was something that I was very afraid of. How do you remember someone and forget someone? And I didn't want to forget anybody. And I changed that into a photographic project. So I worked with 4x5-inch slides, and I used the restrictions of photography. So a photo could be very dark or blurry or fake, and I used those things to visualize how you forget and remember. And it was a very personal project for me, but I was reminded of something Mark Rothko, the painter, once said. This canvas is an occasion of my sadness, right to your sadness, so that we are not alone. And I think if art can do that, if art can be that powerful to really convey an emotion, then it's the best thing there is. When I work with these slides, they're like this big, they're 4x5-inch, and at first it was just a material I worked with, but then soon I thought, okay, this should be the end result, because they're translucent, very fragile, beautiful objects, and I wanted to use them not only as a material, but as something that I could show. And the first thing I did was blow one up to a very large scale and paste it on glass so that you could actually see through it the way that you see through the slide itself. And then I later continued working also with the small slides. And as you see, I work with shadows and a lot of fake, a lot of methods to make someone fake, actually, to make someone unclear and hard to grasp, hard to put your hands around it. And sometimes he's clearer and sometimes he's vaguer. And I did also combine the slides. Well, this is some testing, like what happens if you put light on a slide and it becomes a projection, but a very fake projection, or if you put them in front of each other in a space, what might happen? So that's the kind of things that I do with all my work. I play a lot around with the final way it should be presented. So this is one of the works. It's pretty high, it's 1.90 meters, so larger than most people. And it's standing by itself in the space. You can walk around it, and it's translucent, so it needs the white wall to be visible. So if you look at it from the other side, it can actually disappear, or you can see someone through it, and therefore it's a very, very temporary work almost, because it's fragile and it can disappear very easily. And I presented this also at Art Rotterdam, where there were a lot of people. And to me it was very funny because the work was disappearing all the time because of all these people around it, and in a more quiet moment, suddenly it was there and you could see it. And often viewers are a bit frustrated with it. They walk forwards and backwards and keep like, I want to see that person. But they only get a glimpse or a suggestion of a person, and the rest they need to think of by themselves, and they need to have that frustration. That's what I want for them, unfortunately. But so this is the busy Art Rotterdam setting, and I think those people don't know what they are looking at, but that's okay. And this is a more recent addition to this project, so it's a smaller one, and it has the same type of rough steel frame, and the picture is pasted on the glass, also in a translucent print. So if you would hang this on the grey wall, then it would also disappear. You do need the white wall, and it is raised a bit from the background. And these are one-on-one reproductions of the slide, so it's not the original, but it's exactly the same almost. It's a bit different material, but it's the same size and the same image. Okay, next project again. I did another residency, as you might have noticed. I do those a lot. They're a very good way for me to focus and be somewhere and really focus on one project. And this one was in my favorite place in the world, in Iceland. And this is my studio, and you can see the mountains looming in the back, and the sea was on the other side, so it was a very special place with tremendously beautiful nature. And I went there with a specific goal. I wanted to make an artwork that was actually good photography for children. So I did a lot of workshops and other work with children. I taught them, and I did my own photography. And these were always two separate things, and it felt like I should do something maybe to combine these two worlds. And well, when I was in Iceland, I noticed a lot of things in the landscape that were not only the landscape. So with a bit of fantasy, and you can see a lot of things happening in this image. Or here, of course, it could be me, but I saw a wolf. And a lot of things can be found in the snow or in the lava and in all these rough landscapes in Iceland, if you look in a certain way. And I wanted to use that to make a children's book. And well, this one I'm sure you will all see. It's the Elephant Rock of the Westman Islands. And I created a book in which I wanted to teach children or help them to look really, really carefully, and to look at nature in a way they might have not looked at it before, or increase the way they use their imagination. So I used the photographs of the landscapes, which are black and white, to really emphasize the shapes. So you should not be distracted by the colors, because there are beautiful colors there, but I just wanted you to focus on the shapes, so it could also be something entirely different, because it's black and white and you don't immediately recognize what is water and what is a tree and everything. So yeah, this is a dummy. There's only one book of this right now, but I do hope to publish it in a larger edition. At first you see a photograph and you see a small hint in text. So the text is, some say, for example, glaciers have no faces. And then a small eye is put over the glacier so that it does have a face. And in that way, there are like 3 steps. You have the image and you think for yourself, what do I see in this image? Then you have a hint and you think, okay, there might be a face there, and then you have the drawing and it comes forward. So you take a lot of time to see each photograph in a very playful way. And it was important to me that the drawing was not there from the start, but that it came there later. And the text goes on, it keeps saying, like, some say elephants have never been here, some say trolls do not exist, and in the end it says, but I don't believe them. So it's a sort of, it's about imagination and believing in trolls and things like that, which fits very well with the Icelandic culture, because I tested the book with Icelandic kids and Dutch kids, and the difference was very big, because a typical Dutch kid would say, no, that's true, wolves do not come here, and witches do not exist. And a typical Icelandic kid would say, oh, I saw the mountain move yesterday and I talked with a dragon this morning. So the culture is quite different. But yeah, we can spread that, I think. I like the Icelandic approach. Okay, so we're nearing the end already. I'd like to say something about the project I'm currently working on. It's still very much in progress. I'm doing another residency for 3 months this spring, April, May and June, in Het 5e seizoen, the 5th season. I have a very large, beautiful villa in Den Dolder, where I can work and sleep and live, and it's on the edge of a psychiatric terrain. So there are a lot of different types of patients living there, and I'm working with them. And my focus is empathy. Can people understand one another? Can they really relate to one another? And how does that work when you're schizophrenic or you have psychiatric troubles? And how do other people understand you when you are in such a state? And it's a very challenging project, also to be there all the time, and it can be quite intense. But these are some first images of people, and I pay a lot of attention to body language and also to the text. So I also use dialogues of people talking with each other and how they relate to each other. And in the end it will be a publication, so the goal is to make a book again, which I will actually publish. And so I'm right in the middle of it right now. And there will be an exhibition, in case you're interested, in Het 5e seizoen at the end of June. So my work, just to summarize a bit, is working with the invisible themes, with the question, what can you show in photography and video? How can you use reality, but make the reality different for each person, and enable the viewer to finish the work in their own way? These are questions that I work with and that I want to raise. Just something in case you would like to follow my work. As you saw, I work with analog photography, and I also make analog newsletters a lot. So I'm not the mailing type, well, not the emailing type, but the regular mail. And I send those 2 or 3 times a year, and if you like, you're welcome to subscribe, and I can send you the next edition, which will also include an invitation to the exhibition in Het 5e seizoen. And you will get beautiful things like this. And you can subscribe on my website, and on my website I also have a lot of blogs from the residency right now. And I have even a sort of work for sales section where you could also buy works, because most of them are for sale. So keep updated if you want. And thanks a lot.